Good evening and welcome to the Transportation Planning Organization, the meeting for Wednesday, October 30th. If we can please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the other side. Parkville. Gail, can we have a roll call, please? Thank you.
Commissioner Myers?
Here.
Mayor Ross?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Wastel?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen?
Here.
Commissioner Kemp is excused. Councilmember Clendenin is also excused. Councilmember Hurtak?
Here.
Councilmember Maniscalco? Here. Mayor Kilton?
Here.
School Board Member Rendon is excused. Charles Klug? Here. Gina Dew? Bob Fry? Here. Gary Hartfield? Present. And Planning Commissioner Joseph is also excused. We do have an in-person quorum.
Thank you so much. Can we have approval of the minutes for September the 11th, 2024?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Do we have any opposers? That motion is carried. Now we're going to public comments. If you're here to speak on the long-range transportation planning, that is a part of, second part of our meeting, which is our action item number 10. And so you'll only be able to speak once. And so is this for the long range? Okay, LRT. Do we have any public comments to speak now? Anyone? Okay, hearing none, we'll move right along. At this time, we'll hear from our committee. Am I missing something?
No, we did have one signed up to speak online. I'm not sure if she intended to give a comment on the LRTP or the regular.
Staff, do we have anyone online to speak? County staff?
I do not believe we have anyone online to speak for general public comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time we have committee reports. Rick Fernandez, followed by the advanced comments. Harmony McGee, good evening.
Good evening, Chair. How's everyone doing? I trust everyone survived the storms. It's been an interesting period since I last saw you, so glad everybody's here and safe. As I think you all know, my name's Rick Fernandez. I'm chair of your CAC. I'm here now to provide you with the report of our October 2, 2024 meeting. We convened at 6 p.m. and easily met in-room quorum requirements with 17 members in attendance. To my recollection, this was the most well-attended meeting post-COVID. We're happy to welcome a few new members to the committee, which now reflects more diverse and a more diverse array of geographic and demographic interests. Just a footnote, I want to congratulate Dr. Wong and his staff because they pushed the bylaw amendments, and the whole goal was to increase the size of the CAC and increase the diversity, and I think we're beginning to see the results of that. It's taken a while, it's evolutionary, but it is happening. So thank you, Johnny, for that work. There was no public comment at this meeting. The chair's report, that would be me, included a summary tracking the fate of September's CAC recommendations to the TPO board. That's become a regular feature of our meetings to let our members know how our recommendations fare in this chamber. That actually, I think, was a recommendation of Dana Lazarus, as I recall. She's in the room, so a shout out to Dana as a member of our CAC leadership. The summary also included a discussion of the evolution of the discussions related to the capacity project on Interstate 275 north of Hillsborough Avenue to Beers. More specifically, we covered the motion to amend the TIP made by Commissioner Wastel in June, the motion made by Council Hurtek in August seeking to workshop the capacity project, and the results of meetings and discussions had with members of the Tampa City Council, the Hillsborough County School Board, and the Hillsborough County Planning Commission during the months June through September of this year. CAC members were briefed on the Tampa City Council resolution in August opposing expansion of the I-275 corridor north of Hillsborough to Beers, and the fact that neither the Planning Commission nor School Board have stated policies on the I-275 capacity project north of Hillsborough to Beers, at least not as of October 2. This later point raised concerns that votes cast by TPO board members representing these appointing authorities, and perhaps others, are voting personal preference without oversight by or input from their respective boards. This adds to already existing concerns that some board members of on this dais are not accountable in any way to the communities impacted by the subject capacity project, or for that matter, to their appointing authority boards. It is my intent as chair to encourage development of dialogue between appointing agencies and their CAC representatives. Ideally, CAC members will participate in preparatory discussions with their appointing authorities so as to eliminate the Lone Ranger scenario that seems to exist today. Hypothetically, and as example, I'm not picking on anyone here, it just so happens that I spent a fair amount of time with the school board, so I'm going to use them as an example. If an issue is scheduled to come before the TPO board, the school board member should vet the issue with their board for direction before the issue is presented to the TPO board for action. The same is true for the Planning Commission. CAC members, I believe, can help to promote those discussions and be prepared to vote their agency policies when the issue is presented at the CAC. None of that, to my knowledge, is happening now. The more you understand the gaps in the system, the less it appears to be representative and transparent. There were 3 items presented to the CAC for action. The first was, there were 3 TIP amendments. This is on your action item list on your agenda. US 301 at Sims Road intersection improvements, Hillsborough County Bridge planning study, and US 301 from Manatee County line to south of State Road 674 resurfacing. These amendments drew an enabling motion and a second. The CAC motion recommending the TPO board approve these amendments to the FY 25-29 TIP passed unanimously. And again, that's an action item on your agenda tonight. Our next action item was the urban area boundary and functional classification update. As I understand it, that particular item is on your consent agenda, so I assume it's going to be before you in just a few moments. TPO staff presented this item and provided an overview of the changes. CAC members asked questions about the implications of these changes and the relationship between functional classification and context classification. The CAC motion recommending approval of the TPO, or approval, let me state that again. The CAC motion recommending approval to the TPO board passed unanimously. Again, that's on your consent agenda tonight. Finally, we had a presentation on the Access 2050 plan, which is the subject of your public hearing tonight. Gina Torres of TPO staff presented the plan. Comments were received, or comments were reviewed as received to date, and she also addressed the responses to those comments. Committee members asked questions related to congestion, what smart cities means, and and also discussion about the streetcar and the process to amend the LRTP once adopted. And also, not surprisingly, the project on I-275 north of Hillsborough to Beers. A motion was made and seconded to strike from the LRTP the I-275 capacity project from north of Hillsborough Avenue to Beers. Your handout materials, the Plan 2050 document, this particular project appears at page 106 of your package. It's the next to the last line item on that page. This motion to strike that capacity project passed by a vote of 11-6. The CAC then litigated a motion to forward the final draft Access 2050 plan as amended, meaning as amended striking the I-275 capacity project, to the TPO board for adoption. That motion passed unanimously 17-0. A couple of questions hung fire during the meeting, and hopefully somebody on this board will be able to extract an actual response. One question that no one seemed to answer was whether or not the Interstate 275 expansion project, the capacity project, is in fact beyond the point of no return. If anyone is actually going to make that claim. And if so, was it beyond the point of no return at the time the TIP was amended in June? Because nobody ever talked about that issue, and obviously that's a problem potentially. Somebody needs to answer that question and explain to us. I hope somebody here will ask those questions. Also, it was very difficult to get a commitment or a straight answer out of FDOT staff as to whether or not the project, again, north of Hillsborough Avenue to Beers, is going to involve an expansion of the footprint of the interstate infrastructure. Not whether or not it's going to be done within the existing right-of-way, but whether or not the footprint of the thing is going to actually expand beyond what it currently is. There's a lot of, there's a lot of difficulty communicating with FDOT staff about that. They simply will not answer that question directly. They apparently don't use the term footprint. It's not in their lexicon. So I hope somebody will understand what the destructive nature of this project actually is. It doesn't matter, quite frankly, whether or not the project is going to be done with existing right-of-way that has been purchased now for decades. So those two things, hopefully, you will be able to bring to ground. Our next CAC meeting is Monday, November 4 at 6 p.m. We're expediting it because your meeting is going to be, I think, 2 or 3 days later. I thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to stand for them.
Thank you.
If not, respectfully submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Gina Torres. I'm stepping in for Harmony. She's at the helping out at the Planning Commission's Design Awards tonight. So I'll be summarizing the feedback from your other TPO committees on tonight's agenda items. The consent item on the update of the urban area boundary and functional classification was also unanimously supported by the Technical Advisory Committee. It was asked and clarified what the implications are to design and funding. On your agenda for action, 3 TPO committees received a presentation on those TIP amendments. The Citizens, Technical, and Intelligent Transportation Committees all recommended that the TPO board approve the amendments. Committee members emphasized including resiliency when those projects move forward, and there was confirmation that the signal poles would be concrete mast arms, that any bridge studies would include resilience to flooding. And this is a very hot topic, as you can imagine. As far as committee action on the adoption of the Access 2050 Long-Range Transportation Plan, the Livable Roadways Committee was presented an overview of this plan in September, but they didn't hold an October meeting. But at that time in September, members expressed concern about the allocation of transportation funds, noting that the number of capacity improvements rather than transit projects were dominant. And that was the #1 survey response on the outreach survey. They also requested clarification on how the major projects are determined, and these concerns are going to be addressed in the presentation that's made on the Access 2050 when we open the public hearing. You've heard from the CAC that their motion was to forward a plan for adoption with that amendment to remove I-275 widening. The Bicycle, Pedestrian, Technical, and Intelligent Transportation Committees unanimously moved to forward that draft plan to you all as it was presented. However, the BPAC asked that DOT pair bus rapid transit with the I-275 widening project, that lower stress bicycle facilities be prioritized higher as projects move forward, and they noted there are limitations to cost-benefit analyses and thought that public sentiment should play a larger role. The Technical Advisory Committee suggested under Smart Cities that there may be other ways to improve safety after storms, such as using solar power to keep traffic signals operating. They also expressed support for the streetcar extension and the bus rapid transit project from downtown to USF. So there were no advanced public comments as tonight, either for items other than the LRTP. So I'll be back up here to share the LRTP comments that we received during that public comment review period when the public hearing opens.
Okay, are there any questions? Thank you. Gail, can you add that Gina Drew had joined the meeting? Thank you. Can we move to consent agenda? Have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposers? That motion is carried. I'd like to welcome the new members to the CAC, and also would like to welcome Gary Hartfield, who's representing Hart to this board. Thank you. Okay, we'll move right into the action item. Elizabeth, good evening.
Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. There are 3 TIP amendments before you today, 2 projects on US 301 and 1 Hillsborough County bridge planning study. The first project is a 301 at Sims Road intersection improvement. So a few components of this project scope include reconstructing the intersection with rigid pavement, also known as like a concrete type material, adding a new signal at Rodine and Ramble Creek Drive, implementing some drainage improvements, as well as safety modifications such as sidewalks and crosswalks at the intersection. Construction is estimated to begin in 2025. On the slide is an example of that material technology that is being used. DOT has used this also at US 301 and Bloomington Avenue, and they've found while there's a higher upfront cost using this, this type of material, overall the life cycle, there's less frequent rehabilitation, so there are some cost savings as well as minimization of disruption to the traveling public because you're not resurfacing or modifying as often. So what's changing in the transportation improvement program? Well, $3.8 million is needed to be added. One, for the unit cost increase that are seeing across the industry, as well as that additional signal at Rodine. Moving to the next project is the Hillsborough County Bridge Planning Study. This was a discretionary grant that the county won across the country to study 11 water crossing bridges throughout unincorporated Hillsborough County. The bridges were selected based on their state of repair, as well as a community analysis to ensure that there's balance between rural, urban, and a few other criteria to ensure relatively equal distribution across unincorporated county. And the intent behind this study is to determine the most effective approach to addressing the needs, whether that's rehabilitation or replacement. The project intends to kick off in 2025 and wrap up in 2026. These are 2 images of 2 of the 11 bridges that will be evaluated. The first of which is Morris Bridge Road Bridge over in the northern part of the county, as well as Old Bay Shore over Raceway Canal, which is between Palm River and the Gibsonton area. So what's changing in the transportation improvement program? Because the county won this discretionary grant, that needs to be added to the TIP in order to capitalize on that $2 million coming down from the federal government. And then finally is a repaving project on US 301 from Manatee County line to south of State Route 674 or Sun City Center Boulevard. This is a resurfacing of that roadway, as well as a bit of widening to include buffer safety lanes on the inside and outside of the travel lanes. And construction's estimated to begin in 2025. So what's changing is the TIP is $2.4 million is needed for construction and $1.5 million is needed for right-of-way, largely due to the increase of the lanes for safety and buffer purposes. As always, your staff followed the public participation requirements, and 3 weeks before the original October 16th meeting, we posted a newsletter article, social media post, and webpage. So the recommended action before you is to approve by roll call vote these amendments to the fiscal year 25-29 Transportation Improvement Program.
And thank you for your presentation. Do we have any questions? Seeing none. Gail, can you give a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Myers?
Yes.
Mayor Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Wastel?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Councilmember Maniscalco?
Yes.
Councilmember Hurtak?
Yes.
Mayor Kilton?
Yes.
Charles Klug?
Yes.
Gina Du?
Yes.
Bob Fry?
Yes.
Gary Hartfield? Motion passes 12-0.
Okay. Can we go back and make it official? Someone make a motion in a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the action item. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposers? That motion is carried. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is adjourned our regular meeting. We don't need to take a break now. Okay, we're gonna keep rolling. Okay, so now we're called to order for the public hearing for the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan Update. We have action items. Gina? Again, good evening.
Good evening again, Gina Torres, TPO staff. I will summarize for you quickly but thoroughly the public comments that we received since the opening of the review period. There were over 50 emails received before 3 p.m. yesterday that were provided in their entirety to you in your packets or in an email from Cheryl. There were an additional 20 comments received today, a lot noting similar sentiments, so I'm including their name in the record when I go over those. Almost all 70 were in opposition to the widening of I-275, other than one email from Clifford Rice. He represents the Aberdeen Creek Homeowners Association, and he requested that the Gibsonton Drive interchange at I-275 project not be delayed to the later years of the LRTP, and did ask that in the interim, if operational improvements would be considered on Gibsonton Drive. The comments in opposition to the 275 widening fell into a couple of different categories. Emails emphasizing that the widening is expensive, will mostly serve other counties, won't help congestion over the long run, is bad for the environment, being dirty, air pollution, noise, and runoff, will not improve safety, and we should focus more on options for high-quality commuter rail and other transit, were sentiments received in emails from Chris Givens, Ari Michaelides, Faith Wind, Melanie Yoshida, Lana Hernandez, Rick Fernandez, Vivian Merck, Erin Mayer, Alex Whitaker, Laura Whiteside, Elizabeth Corwin, Wade Fitzgerald, Sherry Levins, Gigi Genwine, Cheryl Umberger, Susan Glickman, Xavier Walton, Andres Barbosa, and in an email from the National Youth Network. There was another series of emails along those similar lines, but also stating that the widening incentivizes more vehicular traffic through Tampa, that divides communities, and recommends a move towards more, and they recommend a move towards more sustainable infrastructure that doesn't destroy the urban core for the benefit of regional commuters. And this message was written in emails from Chanel Cox, Tina White, Scott Tankel, Jessica Montgomery, Jeremy Korch, Nicholas Meyer, Elizabeth Lloyd, Seattle Ray, that was the name of the email, there was no name, Jennifer Wiggs, Sarah Kahn, Mary King, Joseph King, Jennifer Grubb, Adam Bobbitt, Natalie V, Stephanie Bell, Alana Cooper, Reva Inman, Tony Hyman, Maya Trotz, Jana Davis, Owen Young, David Sinclair, Natalie Jackson, Emerson Elliott, Keith Sedita, Linda Salsena, Regina Polite, Becky Zarger, Naya Young, Julie Freeman, and William Dobbs. Another theme of emails centered on the decision to reverse the description of the project at the TIP hearing, that it was sneaky, it did not allow citizens the opportunity to provide feedback on the impacts to interchanges at Sly, Bush, and Fowler, and secondly, adding a call to amend the TPO bylaws to limit voting power of non-elected members. Those emails were sent by Carol Bennett, Bobby Crichton, Dr. Michael Povat, Dana Fortson, Nancy Nadelson, Kelly Merck, Anna Bazinski, Arlene Lewis, Carl Peterson, Maureen O'Brien, Jeffrey Silverstein, and Candace Croson. Cecilia Bidwell and Matt Sank, I think he's here, added that citizens made their disapproval known years ago when the widening was removed, and that neighborhoods surrounding are negatively impacted, and we should focus on extending the streetcar. Ted Marcello emailed that he works for the Institute of Sustainable Infrastructure, and the expansion uses outdated strategies to mitigate traffic. Alternative routes and mass transit are more effective and have lasting impacts, and he referenced the K Freeway in Houston as an example of induced demand. Brian Seal wrote to share that he's a small business owner and his employees have no other options than car ownership, which is expensive and unreliable. Stephanie Poyner disagreed with the argument that widening is for evacuation. It isn't a good use of tax dollars for a rare event, and often the recommendation is to only evacuate for short distances. Those are your 70 email summary. There were just a handful of Facebook posts that I'll just share quickly. Amanda Brown, Rick Fernandez, and Tatiana Morales asked that the board stop the widening of I-275 north of Hillsborough to Bears. Rick Fernandez shared a photo from the architectural Facebook page showing more lanes don't mean less traffic, with a quote from Lewis Mumford that adding more lanes to deal with traffic congestion is like loosening your belt to cure obesity. Adam Frintz commented that we can't keep attempting to solve modern problems with feckless tools. John Slupecki, there are far more pressing needs like intersection improvements and properly funding the county's transit system, including HART's heavy maintenance facility. And lastly, Michelle Kreese shared that highway widening is a 1950s approach to relieving traffic, and other cities across the country and the world are moving away from this solution. So this was your comments we received during that review period for the LRTP.
Thank you so much. Can we have a motion to receive the summary? We have a motion and a second to receive the summary. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposers? That motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. Frenchco? We have the Kittleson and Associates. Good evening.
My name is Franco Saracino with Kittleson & Associates, and I will be presenting the culmination of the last couple years of work to update the Hillsborough County Long Range Transportation Plan with Access 2050. As a quick reminder, the LRTP update process really is a collaborative and technical process that meets all state and federal requirements. It involves extensive public engagement, involves a technical analysis of needs and prioritization of those needs, and ultimately culminates in a cost-feasible plan. So the public hearing, or the public comment period opened last month in September for adoption of this plan, and we're going to be asking the board to vote to adopt the plan tonight. So there's a lot of moving parts that go into the plan update process. Really begins with an estimation of the growth we expect to occur in Hillsborough County, including in terms of population and employment growth and how that affects the transportation system. We participated in a regional environmental consultations workshop to consider the environmental impacts of major capital improvements, conducted a thorough technical evaluation and analysis in the needs assessment process. Again, extensive community community outreach, including a survey conducted back in June, and ultimately the forecasting of revenues that we expect to be available to fund the plan, all going into the development of a cost-feasible plan. So that cost-feasible plan allocates funds across 5 categories of improvements. With the exception of major projects, those categories do not include specifically listed projects, but rather allocations of funding to those buckets, to those types of improvements. What that gives us is the flexibility to advance projects as the needs arise. It also requires that the TPO coordinate consistently and continuously with the implementing agencies as well as the public to make sure that as projects are advanced, they meet the spirit and vision of the long-range plan. The major projects category does include specific projects that were costed out, included in the cost-feasible plan, and it does include a mix of roadway and transit projects. So one of the advantages of that allocation to buckets approach is that it expands the number of projects that are eligible for federal funding. Projects essentially have to meet one of two criteria to receive federal funding. The first is that the project meets the characteristics of one or more of those needs assessment categories, or secondly, the project would have to be listed as a major project in the plan. I want to stress that at the long-range transportation plan stage, these aren't real projects yet. They're ideas of projects, and throughout the project development process, there typically are multiple opportunities for the public to provide input and for the TPO to weigh in on the projects. In terms of expected revenues, we've estimated that we will have $18 billion of revenues available between now and 2050. That is actually a conservative estimate, does not include any new taxes per the direction of the board, as well as what we learned from the public. $18 billion is a lot of money, but unfortunately, it's less than half of what we estimate the needs to the transportation system over that period, which is about $47 billion. This really underscores the importance of implementing the plan efficiently, to look for the low-hanging fruit and efficient improvements, as well as being very active in identifying additional funding sources, including discretionary grant programs. So I'm going to spend the rest of the presentation tonight talking about the comments that we've received since September and how those were addressed. So there's four basic categories of comments. The first is the desire for more transit. The second is the need to add a fiscal constraints table by funding source to the plan document. The third is to differentiate major projects within TPO control and how the community can propose projects for consideration. And then finally, opposition to the I-275 widening project. So starting with that transit comment, I'm excited to announce that we have added the streetcar extension to the cost feasible plan map as it was funded in the TIP. With respect, though, to other transit projects that were identified, they remain unfunded needs due to the lack of sufficient detail to be able to cost them out and include them in the cost feasible plan, including the technology, the operating characteristics, and all of those things that go into the cost estimates. So those other transit projects do remain as unfunded needs. On a more positive note, though, the City of Tampa recently won a Regional Infrastructure Accelerator grant for $1.75 million. And the purpose of this grant is to identify innovative financing techniques or strategies to fund more projects. And in fact, 3 of the projects that are listed in the grant include transit, streetcar extension and modernization, premium transit connecting downtown to the airport, and premium transit connecting downtown to USF. So this is a good example of being proactive and looking for those additional opportunities to be able to advance important projects. With respect to the cost revenue balancing table, the previous draft of the plan did summarize revenues and did summarize costs, but what we've done is added a side-by-side comparison just to facilitate that review and demonstrate cost feasibility. So that top table includes a summary of revenues broken down by federal, state, and local. The bottom table summarizes those revenues in the first row and then includes the costs of those categories of improvements, the needs-based costs and the major project costs. And as you can see, those revenues and costs balance out to 0 across the board, indicating that we've made use of every available dollar that we expect to be available in implementing this plan over the coming years. One of the comments we got from the Citizens Advisory Committee was to include a table that breaks down major roadway projects by jurisdiction, by lane miles. And so this table does just that. As you can see, 93% of lane miles added in major projects are on state roadways, the remainder on county roadways. We've also included this graphic, which is a breakdown of funding allocations to those 5 programs. As you can see, major projects is the largest category with 38% of the funding. I think it's noteworthy that the second largest category at 32% is state of good repair and resilience. And this stresses the importance of maintaining our roadways, our bridges, and our transit assets in good working condition, and looking for opportunities to harden those facilities and make them more resilient. Obviously, that's never been more important than today in the wake of these two major hurricanes that we just sustained. We've also included a breakdown of major projects in cost terms. And as you can see, 85% of the dollars in major projects are on FDOT facilities, 77% on CIS facilities, 13% on county roadways, and 2% for transit. The TPO and the public, of course, can influence projects that are selected for the cost feasible plan to varying degrees. We can comment on CIS projects, we can provide input, but we have to remember that those CIS decisions are typically made at the state level and up in Tallahassee. Regardless of that, as I mentioned before, during the project development process, there typically are many more opportunities to weigh in and potentially modify projects. Speaking to how major projects are chosen, this is truly a mix of collaboration and technical analysis. It really begins with coordinating with our implementing agencies to identify needs, coordinating with our committees, with the TPO board, public outreach to identify needs. Those needs are then run through a technical evaluation process. Then we go back out to the public, as we did in June of this year, for them to weigh in on the cost feasible plan. With respect to the I-275 widening project, as we all know, this project has a long and complicated history, and I thought I would highlight a few of the recent milestones in the journey of this project. Starting with back in June of 2021, the board approved changing the description of the project from capacity to constructing sound walls. Fast forward to June of this year, the description was changed back to capacity. But the most recent action on the project was the TPO board's acceptance of a letter that was drafted by TPO staff to urge the department to consider transit as a component of the project. As you know, this public hearing was originally scheduled for October 16th, but because of Hurricane Milton, we had to reschedule to tonight. The TPO staff has properly advertised this meeting through a variety of means, including social media, press release, the TPO website. Two times the public hearing was published in the Times, La Gaceta, and the Florida Sentinel Bulletin, so properly advertised in accordance with regulations. As a final note, a couple of comments that aren't specifically addressed since the last reading of this plan include the Gibsonton Drive interchange comment. Of course, that project is included in the later years of the plan. In addition, FDOT requested that 2 projects be added to the cost feasible plan, including Branch Forbes Road and McIntosh Road. We have not added those projects since September. They are significant projects that would require reshuffling of the cost feasible plan. So at this late date, with the need to adopt this plan, the recommendation is that they be considered at a later date after adoption as LRTP amendments. So that concludes my presentation. I believe the chair will now entertain public comments, followed by board discussion, and then our recommended action will be to adopt the Access 2050 plan.
You're spot on. We're going right into public comments. Thank you so much for your overview. So our first 3 speakers. First speaker, Lena Young-Green, followed by Rick Fernandez and Jason Marlowe. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for another opportunity to come before you. Tonight, I am really, really depressed about what we're hearing about. We have.
Hold on one second, Lena.
Sorry.
Oh, that's you? Okay.
Yes. Sorry about that. 3 months ago, I asked specifically for you all to direct DOT to please address Robles Park. Robles Park sits right next to interchange of 2 interstates. It's the only park that sits there, and it has this body of water that brings in all this water from off of the interstate. The Hurricane 2 weeks ago had me inside my house with only 5 inches for water to come into our houses. Some of the other houses were flooded out. And that's because of increased capacity on these ever-extending roads that you all keep approving and not considering us in the core of this community who have to live in these spaces. It took days for us to get out of our houses. Some people had to be rescued. My great-grandchild had to be rescued. Some of the other people had to be rescued from that area. No electricity, no means of communicating. Plus, that park also has a wastewater. That's all because of continuous expansion of roads in an area that cannot accommodate that. And now we're talking about further expansion north of us, which is only going to impact our urban core as we continue to build out this interchange for two interstates in the core of a community where the property value is so much higher and roads do not increase property value. We're begging you one more time. Those who don't live there don't understand the impact of these ever-increasing roads. You don't live there, but we do. So when we all come before you and ask you to consider stop expanding these roads and find modern, up-to-date means of moving people around rather than accommodate one person in a vehicle at our expense, that is just not fair. And we keep coming before you, and we ask you to please consider taking out this expansion. We thought we had it covered months ago when we talked about it, and there was an amendment to do that. Now, suddenly, we expect that your commitment to us is what it is. Suddenly, again, we're listening to the hearing a few months ago, and here comes this amendment out of nowhere. We did not even know that this was coming forward, but it was approved by you. Please take that out for us.
Thank you. Rick Fernandez.
Chair, you're granting
Good
us
evening.
you're giving us 3 minutes apiece.
Yes.
This will be clear. All right, thank you for that courtesy. My name's Rick Fernandez. I'm president of the Tampa Heights Civic Association. My comments are made in my individual capacity and also as representative of the Civic Association. Your CAC has recommended striking the 275 capacity project from Hillsborough to Beers from the LRTP. My ask is that you follow that recommendation and note, please, that the vote was 11-6 to strike it and ultimately to forward an amended LRTP to you by unanimous vote of 17-0. That's 17 folks that a lot of you appointed to the CAC. And note that by striking the project, you will be acting consistent with the resolution passed by the Tampa City Council in August and action taken by this board in June of 2021 when the project was struck from the tip. Not to mention nearly 10 years of community opposition dating back to 2015, opposing this project as part of the larger vessel known lovingly as Tampa Bay Express. If you support the I-275 expansion, this is some of what you are saying to Tampa and Hillsborough County residents. One, you support a demonstrably unpopular project and seemingly don't care one whit about the neighborhoods that have been carrying the I-275 load for the region for 60+ years. You are not a fiscal conservative. This project carries a price tag of $400 million plus at time of expenditure, which, by the way, isn't until sometime 2035 to 2050 for 2 general use lanes. You are not an environmentalist. You're in deliverables on this project to people in Hillsborough County. What are they? Well, at the height of TBX, when the interstate was going to be expanded about double its size, the best we ever heard was 5 to 10 minutes of commuter reduction time. That's for the winners. The losers are going to get decades of additional traffic and pollution of all kinds. Those losers being residents of urban core Tampa, many of whom vote and are your constituents. You have fallen also for the red herring argument that this road widening is needed to facilitate hurricane evacuations. That is false. You run from water to high ground, you hide from wind in a sturdy structure. It's not necessary to get on the interstate and travel hundreds of miles. 20 miles to a sturdy structure outside of a surge area is all you need to do. I'm almost out of time. I will end where I started. Strike I-275 capacity project, Hillsborough to Bears, from the LRTP. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Jason Marlowe.
Good evening. I'll say this. If we're going to spend $400 million doubling down on some old technologies, why don't we build some warehouses for Zeppelins or some parking posts for horse and buggies? Because if we're going to be wasting money on stupid, anachronistic technology that has no basis in today, I mean, just go ahead. Furthermore, I'll say this. Listen, the reason why this many people are here is because Tampa's urban core is listening. We care. This is our community. It's the air we breathe. It's the homes we live in, where we want to raise our families, where we want to have our lives. If you want to make our lives more difficult, I promise you we will put that right back on you or yourselves. The Heights remembers.
Thank you. Tatiana Morales. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tatiana Morales, and I'm a constituent of Hillsborough County who is deeply upset about what's happening here today. When we look at the future, when we look at what's actually going to happen to our kids, to the people that are building up the community that we're building for, the highway isn't it. The highway will only bring more air pollution. As someone that actually grew up in Miami next to Palmetto, I've had asthma my whole life. And that's pretty fascinating because my entire family line, no one but me got asthma so severe that it consistently takes me out and I have to go to the hospital. So I really want you guys to understand that the science isn't there. Widening does not work. It only feeds money in FDOT to say, yeah, we'll just keep making it bigger and bigger. Who cares about the people that live in Tampa Heights? Who cares? Maybe someone in Wesley Chapel gets 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Isn't 5 minutes the thing we need for hundreds of millions of dollars? No, we need to invest in the alternatives. The community says over and over and over and over, and you guys get to go back to your constituencies and say, yeah, we heard you, so we're blowing out another community. And we're just gonna keep doing that cycle until you really hear the community when they say, no, strike the highway expansion up to Bears out of the LRTP. This is the next 30 years of the future we're planning for, and this level of planning is a failure. Do you wonder why big companies go to St. Petersburg that just built a BRT line instead of us? Do you wonder why Google laughs at us when they say, hey, what about Tampa? And they say, no. How will our workers get to work? How will people actually arrive at their destinations without getting air pollution, without dying? Because we pretend that, oh, the highway is the solution. Why do we, the first thing when a storm comes, we close the bridges? Because people die on the interstate. They do not live, they die. And we pretend that this will actually make things better when the science does not say that. The science says widening does not work. And we cannot make that clear. Do you want Hillsborough County to be Houston, LA, even fucking Orlando? I'm sorry for the cursing. But what I really want to emphasize is that 80% of the households around these communities of these widenings are going to be marginalized and minority communities. You are telling them that their futures do not matter. You are telling them that they will get asthma. They will grow up wondering, oh, is it going to be me that dies next? Because as someone that lives next to these expressways, you hear the crashes all the time. They are constant. They are a constant reminder that the highway is not the solution. And every other community, even in Florida, Miami, Orlando, they're actually moving forward. Brightline is heading toward us, and we're not doing anything about it. And it is a failure to pretend that the community actually wants this expansion, when on your own survey that asks, what does the community want in the state of the region, in every other report, the community says, we do not want highway expansioning. We do not want it. And so what I really want to end with is that a 2013 study found that air pollution related to road transportation contributed to 53,000 early deaths every year. And once built, a highway can seem fixed like a mountain, an unmoving feature of the urban landscape. But unlike a mountain, a highway breaks down. A highway is made of concrete, which degrades over time. Asphalt cracks, steel rusts, piers warp. Across the country, the highways that we built in the 1950s and 60s are coming to the end of their lifespan. And almost every city across the country is figuring out, what do we do with this aging landscape? They're saying, do not expand it. Invest in our communities.
Thank you for your comments. Lynn Gray. Lynn Gray. Dana Lazarus. Followed by Dana would be Michelle Cookson, and then Nathan Higgins.
Hello, this is Michelle Cookson. My time was donated to Dana Lazarus.
Go ahead, Dana.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, I'm Dana Lazarus, and I don't live near where this project is. I just really care about transportation planning. I really care about this community. I'm a fifth generation Tampanian. My family moved to Ybor City in the very early 1900s, and I really care about the future, and I want to stay here. So I do have a few criticisms of the highway widening projects in the LRTP, specifically the 275 project from Hillsborough to Bears, for your consideration. I want to address the right-of-way first, because I have to admit I was confused about the additional right-of-way question initially when this project was proposed back in June, or when I heard of it back in June. So then, when I read the PD&E preliminary engineering report for this project, I found that it says that the preferred build alternative typical section includes 4 12-foot general purpose lanes in each direction for a total of 8 lanes, and a 15-foot inside shoulder to quote-unquote accommodate transit, which cannot be held accountable, by the way, and I'll cover that in a minute, and a 12-foot outside shoulder in each direction. So that's way more pavement than is currently there now. The PD&E does state that widening to the outside shoulder will be required. So let's be very clear, there will be considerable widening of the physical structure for this project, regardless of right-of-way needed for acquisition, robbing more land from our city's potential taxable land use revenue, and further encroaching upon the health, safety, and overall quality of life of those neighborhoods that have been disadvantaged again and again and again and again. I was also able to find the traffic analysis from 2019, from the 2019 PD&E that I just referenced, on the general alignment from this project, which was from MLK to Bears and is now Hillsborough to Bears. That analysis focused on a few metrics. How do we increase vehicle miles traveled, reduce move time and delay, and increase speed? There was also a side note about safety. So in this traffic analysis, the results showed that this selected build alternative would increase vehicle miles traveled by up to 19% by 2025. So first, why do we want to increase how many people are driving? The report also found up to a 56% increase in speed during the day by 2025. Increase in speed. Increase in speed. We know that speed increases invariably lead to increased crashes, fatalities, and serious injuries. Also, 2025 is in 2 months. Are we seeing that there was a 56% decrease of speed since the study was performed in 2019? At a minimum, these numbers need to be vetted. In addition, I have a lot of issues with the travel demand management model, or the travel demand model that's used to justify projects like these. It does not include metrics on what the alternative would be for like transportation demand management strategies, for example, which would be much lower in cost than widening the highway, or alternative transportation strategies like public transit up and down nearby corridors, which would allow people the option to not take the highway at all. The model does not include induced demand. The model does not include pollution and environmental impacts. The model does not include noise impacts or health impacts. All it looks at is whether or not cars will be moved. So for people asking what data justifies this project, that's the rudimentary way we decide whether or not to invest $500 million of our tax dollars into a 6-mile project like this one. Finally, evacuation. I looked through all of the relevant supporting studies for the PD&E, and it was funny. While it mentioned evacuation about a dozen times across these documents, saying that the project will enhance emergency evacuation efforts, I didn't see a single piece of data that supports that claim. I also looked at the County Office of Emergency Management's Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, or CEMP, and I found no mention of a need to widen 275 imminently to improve evacuation. It's a straw man argument, I'm afraid. On that note, widened shoulders, there is no way to make sure that those widened shoulders are used for transit. So I believe that it is dangerous to include them. They will, again, blow out the widening of that physical concrete structure. So please take that into consideration. So for today's question about allowing this project to remain in the updated 2050 LRTP, I believe this is a super key milestone today in our activity as a region to show our commitment to shifting away from antiquated transportation practices that have proven unsuccessful at creating a vibrant community and focusing our time and our money on smart planning, multimodal transportation. I believe this is a super key milestone because our LRTP has a 4-year update cycle, and anything approved in the TIP for funding must be consistent with the LRTP. This project currently is unfunded for construction, only funded for this strange design phase. So the state is paying a consultant for drawing up some engineering designs, but the $400 million that the state will need to construct this boondoggle hasn't been approved yet. So I'm gonna run out of time, I'm so sorry. We can't wait until the next LRTP update in 4 to 5 years. When the project was changed and the widening removed in 2021, that should have moved forward an LRTP update at the time, but it wasn't. Now is always a great time to do the right thing.
Thank
Is
you
that
for your
6 minutes or 3?
You've had 6 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Hagan. Nathan. Kimberly Overman, virtually.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Good evening, yes.
Good evening. Thank you for the time to speak. I'm Kimberly Overman, 30-year resident or 34-year resident of the Tampa Bay region, involved in transportation advocacy and volunteerism as a member of the MPO CAC until elected in 2018, where I served on the MPO TPO, the regional TMA as the chair, Park Board, and T-BARTA, which is no longer existing because we don't focus on transit as being a priority. But this community in every survey for decades has asked to prioritize transit as part of our transportation and transportation long-range plan, making sure that it was on the list of priorities so that it could eventually get funded and actually allocated in order to be able to deal with the actual and anticipated growth estimates that we've done as part of our planning in our region. Transit projects ranked by the level of support over 50%. All 3 of the transit projects listed in this LRP ranked higher than 50%. And the 2 referendums that the public supported by simple majority, if that counted, was hijacked by road special interests in Tallahassee and needs to be priorities over and included in our LRTP. Taxpayers lose values of their homes, their communities, and their businesses every time we decide we're going to widen a road. While in 2021, we did agree to put up sound walls to protect the communities that are harmed by 275 that was built over 50 years ago, and the expansion that occurred in the downtown interchange. It is important for us to recognize that when the public comes to you and says, we want alternative ways to get around and to utilize high-speed transit or commuter transit in order to be able to help people of all incomes get around our community so that they can work and take care of their families, we need to respect that voice, especially those that are on our CAC that volunteer hours and hours to serve our community's voice. The support for negotiations for the CSX right-of-way was on our 2040 plan and was on the last LRTP update to support Hart's negotiation to use the CSX right-of-way for passenger transport. It was a top priority for future funding. And what I find fascinating is that it's nowhere listed in this LRTP. So we have forgotten that, but when the prior boards agreed not to add capacity because that's not going to address
Thank you so much for your comments.
Challenges, I think it's important to recognize that.
Please turn the mic off. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mike Thornburn. Mike, virtual.
Mike's not signed in.
Okay, thank you. Chris Valea, in person. Chris? Bella? Good evening.
Good evening. Chris Ravella, 33605. I represent less than 1% of the demographic of Hillsborough County, and I live about 300 feet away from the interchange. Kettleson walked through the Access 2050 presentation that will keep us struck in the 1957 era of transportation. Over 60% of the public survey was comprised of maintaining or building interstates. The LRTP survey boxed in most of the public choices and picking the winning highway projects, thus ensuring FDOT's business assets over the neighborhoods below the roads. The TPO forgets many recent hurricanes were the size of Florida, and non-FDOT roads and neighborhoods have suffered. In other words, for the Star Wars fans out there, the interstate has the physical and political high ground. A larger I-275 will not replace everything lost in a storm in a state with lousy home insurance regulations and loss to jail the homeless. But let's refocus on two other key issues with the LRTP. The TPO needs assessment, or refers to loosely as buckets, are categorized projects under LRTP. So this is kind of like what we call smart cities. However, the needs necessity for equity bucket has been missing since the TPO proclaimed the 2018 for non-discrimination planning. The TPO had 6 years to put this effort into practice in crafting the LRTP, which is missing out of Kettleson's presentation. The feds would never reject a transportation equity assessment, even on FDOT boards. I would ask Dr. Wong why he submitted the presentation to this board missing that bucket. The other issue is that Florida already has an EPA attainment. This means the Clean Air Act of 1964 doesn't fully apply to Lexus Lane projects like this one. FDOT is not legally required to provide sound walls or observe other air impacts, tire particulates, or brake dust that put our county in a D rating under the American Lung Association. As soon as highway construction cost rises, the promise of sound walls and transit evaporates. This is why I've always come to this board for almost the past 10 years with an all or nothing approach, meaning to accept an interstate project or not. There is no middle ground scenario where neighborhoods matter. Lastly, TMA's baited us with a carrot and stick approach to increasing capacity on I-275 by promising premium transit. What they won't tell you is that the interstate 44-foot medium for this transit was never designed for premium transit. I provided, again, Dr. Wong with an article from November 23rd, 1957, showing that the medium was planned but not for transit use. It's always been there. So the feds just wanted to bulldoze as much as black and brown people in our neighborhood core. So let's scrap this LRTP. It's extremely flawed. And let's stop the I-275 widening. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia Raymond Starkey. Sophia. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sophia Ramirez Starkey, and I was born and raised here in Tampa. I'm proud to say that I grew up in the Seminole Heights neighborhood, and I still live there today. I work for a civil engineering firm here in downtown Tampa, and since I still live in Seminole Heights, my commute is around 15 to 20 minutes each way. But I have many coworkers who live much farther, with commutes easily 2 to 3 times as long as mine, coming from New Tampa, Lakeland, Ruskin, etc. And when I told them about the plan that you are considering for the future of the county, not a single one of them thought that widening I-275 would actually be beneficial to them. And that's because as civil engineers, we know that adding lanes to the interstate does not work to reduce commute visits or commute times. And I know that I and my neighbors will bear the burden of worse traffic in the middle of our neighborhood for literally no public benefit that we are asking for. There are years of research and dozens of other cities that anyone can point to whose traffic worsened due to induced demand when their highways were widened. On the other hand, imagine how much you can transform Tampa for the better. We live in the beautiful state of Florida. Why don't we promote choices other than driving, which will allow all of us to enjoy the beautiful weather like what we had today? I'm calling you to remove widening I-275 from the Access 2050 plan and prioritize funding the real choices when not driving portion of Access 2050. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Porzy. Patrick. Good evening.
Hi there. Hi, I'll be really brief. I'm here to oppose the 275 Hillsborough to Bears capacity project. This project is, at best, ineffective and a comically poor use of funds. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We have Emma, virtual. Emma.
I'm not seeing Emma signed in.
Okay. Arjan Manhar, virtual. Do we have another person online? Staff?
I'm not seeing them on either.
Okay. N. Rich. Oh, okay. We left the R off. Okay, Iris then. Thank you. Iris Rich. Good evening.
Hi. My name's Iris. I ride my bike as a way to get to work and recreation and exercise, and I think that's a better way to get around the city, get around any city, really. And expanding the highway, expanding 275, as the gentleman before me said, is a really stupid way to spend our money. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Con Peterson. Con Peterson. Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Carl Peterson. I'm a homeowner in Seminole Heights. I believe I saw you at the Planning Commission a couple months ago, and I remarked that it was really not a great idea to have a public meeting at 9 a.m., and so I'm so grateful that we're having this meeting at 6 p.m. in the evening when we can see a much more diverse representation of the citizens of Hillsborough County. So I just want to thank you for sticking it out maybe a little bit later than you'd like to today. I'll be very brief. You should accept the advisory committee's recommendation to strike the 275 widening from the Access 2050 plan. It's completely undemocratic to pull these last-minute changes when we had an expectation in 2021 of a plan that was going to serve the needs of our community. This is the complete opposite of that. So I think the members from the unelected bodies, such as Port Tampa Bay, such as the Expressway Authority, and Planning Commission itself, I think you're getting a taste of what robust public participation would look like into your organization. So I'm grateful that you're here with us to have a slice of that as well. So really, I'm so grateful to the staff. I don't hear it enough in this room, but the professionalism of the county staff, their dedication to accuracy, their dedication to robust public participation to meet all necessary legal requirements is just above and beyond, and I'm so impressed with our county staff. So I just wanted to maybe close with that. So thank you to them.
Thank you. Okay, Josh Frank. Josh Frank. County
Yes, good evening, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Great, thank you. I'm Josh Frank. I have three very short things to mention. There's so many smart people ahead of me that have said everything I was planning to say already. First is, I'm an urban designer, town planner. I work on long-range transportation plans around the country. I work on vision plans, master plans, codes, all kinds of different projects that are listed in the TIP or projects that the TPO undertakes every year. As a professional, I can tell you that items like the expansion of interstates always rank dead last on every LRTP because they're unnecessary. They are spending valuable dollars in areas that have very little return on that investment. And so by keeping this in the LRTP, you're going against best practices. That's the first. The second is you are not the first TPO board to have this issue come before them. Obviously, you've heard from past board members already, but even further back in the 80s, 90s, the early 2000s, previous boards heard the same argument for expansion on 275, on I-4, on I-75, and approved it. And we just end up at the same place over and over again because we know it doesn't work. So while previous TPO boards have approved these types of projects, you have the opportunity to stop them, to end that cycle. Because if you approve this, if you keep it on the LRTP, some future TPO board 20 or 30 years from now is going to have the same conversation when I-275 fills back up with traffic. It's inevitable. There is no solving congestion this way. The third thing I would just leave you with is the inverse of expanding the interstate, thinking about reducing traffic, investing in transportation and other options is like putting your most valuable crops on the most fertile soil you have as a farmer. The land within the city of Tampa is the most valuable land per acre for 1,000 different metrics because it is within an urban core, because it is with higher density, because there's higher tax revenue, because of that higher density. So by repeating these past traumas in your most valuable part of the jurisdiction you cover, you are doing more harm economically, environmentally, fiscally. Pick a topic, it is worse to have this project in the LRTP than to not have it. So I would just hope that you listen to your CAC. As a former CAC board member, I would hope that, again, you listen to their recommendations and take them to heart. As a professional, I hope you take them to heart. And as somebody who lives within close proximity of 275, I hope you take them to heart. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker, William Hunter.
Yeah, Mauricio Rosas is your last speaker, and I am online.
Good evening.
My name is William Hunter. I live at 5806 North Branch Avenue in Seminole Heights. You've noticed my shirt, I'm sure. The wording's out of date, but the message is the same, my opinion's the same, my feeling is the same. I've lived in Tampa for over 50 years. Probably longer than some of you've been alive. And almost all of that was in
Hold on one second, sir. Gail, can you start the timer, please? Thank you. Go ahead.
Almost all of that was in Seminole Heights except for a year or two. I've watched what was originally I-75 become I-275. I've watched the improvements, so-called, that were made. I've observed the damage that it's caused, and I haven't seen any huge improvement in its ability to carry traffic. There are people who will say that we have to have that kind of corridor, that we have to have this one. That's just simply not true. And that was demonstrated a few years ago in Atlanta when a gasoline tanker crashed underneath one of the main bridges of Atlanta's interstate system, damaged the bridge so badly it had to be closed and later repaired. This happened, I think, on Friday or Saturday, and all the media went nuts predicting disaster, gridlock, the end of the world. Come Monday morning, none of that happened because people sought alternate routes, which is what can happen here. A short time ago, I was in North Tampa around 4:30 to 5 north of Forest Hills. Wanted to come back to Seminole Heights. I did not get on the interstate. I took several other streets and got home within 10 or 15 minutes, which I would not have done on the interstate. Finally, I want to point out that one definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. That's where we are now, and I strongly support removing this from the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have one more person online, but who's not on the sign-up list.
Hey, I signed up.
Who's trying to speak?
Mauricio Rosas, and I've been here. I signed up several days ago, actually a week ago, and I was acknowledged when I signed in today at 5:30.
Okay, go ahead. We'll give you 3 minutes. Go ahead. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mauricio Rosas, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. We need to remind all of you that during the last election cycle, the promise was to focus on local roads. Yet when federal grants were offered, the Republican wing of the Board of County Commissions rejected the grant. Recently, the same officials raised issue with mother-in-law apartments, claiming they were complicating planned communities. Yet all of the planned developments in unincorporated Hillsborough County do not address local road capacities or any alternative transportation. Then, let's talk about FDOT. Ed McKinney, David Gwynn, Justin Hall, on many public meetings, public hearings, TPO meetings, they made it clear the project had to be broken up into separate sections. FDOT separated the project because the dynamics are different from West Shore and different from the downtown interchange. The section from Hannah Avenues to Bears was known and is known as Segment 7. At the FDOT public hearing on March 26 in the Seminole Heights Methodist Church, well over 200 residents came to speak, all of them opposing Segment 7. So I ask, respectfully, ask to strike the I-275 widening project from Hillsborough Avenue to Bears from the LRTP. Thank you.
Thank you. This ends up. Okay, we're moving to board discussion. Councilman, yes. Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You know, next year marks 10 years that I've been on this board. And from my first TIP hearing in 2015, it was Stop TBX. Then it became TB Next. And then it went away. And most recently, it's come to another issue of widening. So in my first 2 terms on council, I had the honor of representing Seminole Heights in the district. And a lot of the individuals are here today. And I've always been opposed to widening of the interstate, the actual footprint, because having known so many people and meeting so many people, I saw how many homes and people were affected. Not just the physical structures, but also their health. As people were saying, you know, asthma and other issues, being so close to that constant traffic. And now I'm in a citywide position. I represent the entire city of Tampa, but in that is still the interstate. Now it's just a greater part beyond the original district that I have. So in May, I traveled to California. And the only place I've ever had to rent a car was California. Years ago, and then this time again. And it was, you know, going through Los Angeles, it's a lot of lanes and a lot of traffic. No matter how much they've widened it and worked on it, that traffic is still there. In July, I went to Miami. Early in the morning, I drove all the way down into downtown Miami. And they have a lot of lanes, a lot of construction. They have express toll lanes, but it was a lot of traffic. I've always thought that we need to look at alternatives. Not everybody relies on the car. And I know that post-World War II, we've become a car-centric society because it was pushed upon us with the interstate, with the car companies. And so here we are. It's multi-generational. We used to have a streetcar until 1946. We no longer have that. We have the existing streetcar that you see that touches just a little bit of the community, but we had a master network to the size that Tampa was. I don't have a car right now. I left it at the mechanic this morning, and I walked to where I needed to go. I had a family member drop me off here today, and after this meeting, either I Uber home or I'll find my way home. But the point is, you know, my options are limited. Because even if I take the bus, I got to walk a ways to get to my house. If the streetcar existed like it did in 1946, it stopped at Columbus Drive, that would have been the closest street. I live closer to the stadium. It's a ways away to walk. The point I'm making is, you know, a gentleman concluded by saying, you know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I just don't believe in you know, spending so much money in this widening. We could put that in so many other places. I understand we have a lot of traffic. I understand that during the daytime, people come from all directions into Hillsborough County, into our community, and it gets very busy. But I think it's wiser to invest that money. I heard $400 million. It could be more or less. We don't know the way things cost right now, into other ideas and other alternatives. And again, getting back to how I started this conversation, widening this interstate from Hillsborough County to Bears is going to affect so many people and make such a minimal, if any, impact. So when the time comes and if the motion is made, I think we should strike that portion Second. Of Hillsborough to Bears, widening of 275 from 6 to 8 lanes. I just don't think it's a wise expenditure of money. We need to look at different options. I mean, we've had since the 1950s, since the interstate started coming through, without notice to people. It was the front page of the Tampa Tribune. I remember pulling up that issue. I think it was like 1958, and it said, "This is what's going to happen to your community." Thankfully, we have the TPO, previously the MPO, that allows people the opportunity to come and speak and express their concerns. But back in the day, they didn't have an option. There was urban renewal, also known as urban removal, and neighborhoods were destroyed. And we embraced the car. But in 2024, we should look at other options. And again, with something of this magnitude and as expensive as it is, I don't think it's going to make a difference. So it's something that we should consider removing from this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you. It's very interesting that we had to postpone this meeting due to a couple of hurricanes. And since that time, we had something pretty amazing happen. HART went fare-free for 2 weeks. What happened during that time is absolutely amazing. I got on the bus the other day with a load of groceries. There was nowhere for me to sit at 12:30 on a Friday. I want to say I saw Justin Willits. Are you in the back? I have a question for you.
Good evening, Justin Willits, HART.
You talked to me earlier about some of the increases we've seen on the routes. Can you just give a quick synopsis of what we saw in 2 weeks of fare-free for HART?
Yeah, roughly it was 5,000 trips more on the weekday, for every weekday, from about 35 to 40,000. And then on the weekend, it was comparable. Sorry, I didn't prepare for this. But it was about the same on the weekend, a little bit more actually. I think there was a higher growth rate on Saturday and Sunday, and the weekday was 35 to 40,000.
I have some numbers here that you gave me earlier, and you can just tell me if they're right or wrong. Overall increase of 5.8% in 2 weeks, ridership. Route 1, which will be fare-free as of January for a year, had a 9.5% increase. And 11% overall weekday ridership increased by 11%. Routes 1 and 6 averaged over 4,000 trips a day during the weekday. And to me, you said it was comparable, but Saturday increases were 19.6% and Sunday were 18.2%. That's significant. How much did that cost? Or, I mean, I don't know if you have the cost for the 2 weeks to cover.
I don't want to say the number because we're still calculating it to report it to FEMA.
Okay.
So I don't want to say anything that's not specifically accurate.
Okay,
but
that's fair.
When we calculated what we thought it would cost for lost revenue to go fare-free was about $25,000 a day. But the cost after the fact is a little bit different, but that is the revenue we collect daily. So that's kind of what we said. That's about what it will cost to go fare-free.
So if we did, you're asking me to do math. So 25,000 times, so that's 100,000 every 4 days, and it went for 14 days.
Well, we collect about 10 million in fare revenue a year. So most of that's from the bus.
Okay.
So it'll make it easy for you.
Okay. So basically you're saying that it didn't, you had a giant increase in ridership with a minimal amount of money. Nowhere near $400 million.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much, I appreciate it. I just wanted to bring him up because for me, it was transformational. The traffic, how many of you had traffic problems coming here today? Seriously, none of you? Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, some of you were late because of that. So, traffic has been outrageous, and thankfully Dr. Wong clued me into some of what the problem was, and some of the problem is our infrastructure and our signalization. When the power went out, when the different boxes got wet, all of it went. Am I correct in that?
Yes, Councilwoman Hurtak, I can speak directly from the experience that Pinellas County's been having because a lot of their issues have been reported in the news. But with many of the electrical cabinets, the signal cabinets that control the signals, they got wet. They weren't reinforced with O-rings or gaskets that were appropriate. And so when that power came back on, they plugged them in, a lot of the circuit boards got fried. That was the reason for much of the delay to turn those dark intersections back on. I would assume it's a similar situation for Hillsborough County. But, you know, if there's a traffic ops person here, I'll defer to them. Maybe Secretary Gwynn can speak to that since DOT has a traffic command center.
So as far as the traffic signals, so we had about, on the state road system, so as you may or may not know, all traffic signals in the region are maintained by local agencies. State reimburses the local agencies to maintain. We typically will build the signals as part of our projects. We turn it over through a maintenance agreement to the cities, the counties, and they maintain it with their staff. When an emergency like this comes, we will step in to do what we need to do to help to get the local agencies what they need to get the signals back online. We had on the state road system about 700 traffic signals in our district that went dark. The primary reason for probably 95% of them was because they didn't have power. It really wasn't that they were wet. Some of them were wet in certain areas, like on flooded areas. You can't expect that it's going to necessarily be able to be submersed in water and not have some damage. But most of them, and we got about 500 generators out within a matter of days, and that's how come most of the signals came back on long before the power. So I'd say, were there some that might have had an O-ring or something? They could have been. The real reason was there was no power. And a traffic signal doesn't work without power or a generator. So that's essentially what happened. And I know Gina, for instance, can attest, we were opening up the airport and we needed to get some of the signals down there real quick on because they were none. And we went out there and got the generators up and got them back up and running right away, even though there was no power. So it's unprecedented that we would have this level of signals with no power. And did what we could to get them back up.
Yeah, and they were everywhere. I did notice that, and I want to thank FDOT for getting those out so quickly. It's amazing to me that only one was stolen, I'll be honest. Like, they were everywhere. But point being, we have two incredibly reasonable ways to spend our money. One, on hardening of all of these signals, which help people get back. And two, just 2 weeks has shown that public transit is desperate for more funding. And I know that we can't spend this SIS money on that, but we can certainly prioritize helping HART with other things so they can expand their services with the money that they receive. I did have a couple of questions. One of the other big issues that I have with this is the increase of traffic increases the traffic on interchange roads. So I live next to Hillsborough Avenue. If you get off on Hillsborough with more lanes, we're just getting more people to get off the interstate at Hillsborough to traffic those streets. The problem is, once you get more cars on those streets can't be expanded. You cannot expand Florida Avenue. You cannot expand in a lot of those areas without taking out small local businesses. And the small local businesses are what keeps our city running. I do not know where we're going to put the cars that are going to come into the city, which is why prioritizing transit is so important. But unfortunately, there's a project that's going on Florida Avenue and Tampa Street right now that's going to resurface the roads, but was also supposed to add stormwater, and it was supposed to add a BRT lane. The stormwater, as we found, Robles Park flooded, and Ms. Young-Green did not explain the magnitude of the flooding. There was a pond, and then a large park, and then streets that surround that park, and then homes. The water went out of the pond, out of the park. You couldn't see anything. It was covering playground equipment, covered the streets, and went into people's homes. And a lot of that was also sewage water. So kids right now can't play on any of that equipment. On the way here, I was waiting at Comanche to get on to 275 to come here. And there's a new expansion, and on the wall that they've built has all these little holes. And as I've been watching, you put rocks back there, and it's all meant for drainage. But so more water just means more drainage. And as we're looking at projects that come here, we absolutely have to look at stormwater and the BRT. FDOT promised the community both stormwater and BRT in that project and wider sidewalks, and they're going away because they can't be funded. There's not enough money for them. So the community is going to suffer because of that. So what's happening with this, if we're talking about expanded right-of-ways for transit, I can't believe that's actually going to happen because of the constant promises and then reneging of the promises that have happened over and over again. That's a conversation for after this vote, but I'm very concerned that more cars mean more impervious surfaces, which mean more water that goes into these communities that flood these homes. No one in these communities had flood insurance. They're in flood zone X. They've lost everything.
Well, when you're done, I'd like to just address.
No. I would appreciate you letting us know what the community can actually expect versus what's promised.
Right.
So hold on one second. But I want you to go ahead and finish so that he can ask, and then we can move on on the agenda. Okay.
No problem. I have a couple more questions because Mr. Fernandez brought them up. Is this project past the point of no return? And if so, when did it become past the point of no return? And we have asked, the community has asked, many people have asked, is there going to be an expansion of the footprint of the infrastructure or not? And then my personal question is this really supposed to start in 2035?
Okay.
The plan and the cost that it would actually be, because right now it's 400 million. I cannot imagine that would stay if it doesn't start for another 11 years.
Okay. Well, let me start back early on, and I'll try to make sure. I think I wrote some notes, so hopefully I hit all the topics you brought up.
Thank you.
In regards to what we would call the Tampa Heights projects, that we made a significant investment, well over $50 million of improvements in the Tampa Heights area coming up and down that corridor. And part of it was to look at improving the drainage through the whole system, and another part of it was to set up the roadway such that it could accommodate bus rapid transit in the future, because the way it was currently set up, it could not because of ADA requirements, the way the road was sloped. We wanted to get the sidewalks wider to make them safer. We were able to get most everything in there. When we went in and found, and I think the city found this out through their projects, there's a lot of stuff under the road that the city did not know about. A lot of city infrastructure that was not documented. Yeah. When we started to determine the cost of all of those relocations, the price went up from, I think originally we were in a 20 to 30 million range to over $70 million. We just didn't have that money. The city was a partner. The city said, we don't have any more money. So we had to try to scale the project back so we could fit some of the core elements like the wider sidewalks, like the ability to accommodate bus rapid transit, to do some drainage improvement, not all that we would like to have done, but it was either do that or we'd have to push the project way out into the future and not be able to do any of that in the near term. So as far as a promise, it was an honest estimate of what we thought it was going to cost. We worked with the city to come up with the estimate based on what everybody thought was in the corridor. And when we did more research, we found that it just wasn't enough. And so that was on that. The flooding, I certainly would sympathize with the people who had flooding. I can tell you, my district is 5 counties. And I've seen a lot of folks all the way from Ridge Manor to Crystal River to up in my area in Lake Magdalene Carrollwood area that are in flood zone X that had massive flooding. Some of it was pumps that didn't work. I know there were some city pumps that the generators didn't work. There were also outfall ditches that we talked earlier about, need to be properly maintained. There's a lot of issues that contributed to the flooding. I don't know what each issue for every area was. We're gonna look into it because there were a lot of people that were in, unfortunately, in areas they shouldn't have expected flooding that got flooded. And that's horrible that that happened. But we'll certainly be looking into that as much as we can as it relates to our system. And we'll work with the other agencies to see what we can do collaboratively to address that going forward. The question about footprint, so it's not really that complicated. Footprint's not a term that's normally used in documents. If I wanted to put it into simple terms, what I'd say is imagine you have a house. You have a piece of property that's 100 foot wide, and you have a house and it's 50 foot wide, and it's stationed in the center of your property. And your family of 4 is living in this house, and you live in there. And 10 years later, you're a family of 6, and I'm going to expand my house. Well, what I'm going to do is maybe I'm going to widen the house 10 feet on each side, but I'm not going to buy more property from my neighbors in order to accommodate it. It's similar to that. What we're saying is, obviously, if we're going to build 2 lanes, that's 24 feet of additional pavement. Has to go somewhere. In some places, it'll go towards the middle of the road. Some place it'll go toward the outside, and some place it will go on both sides. But never will it go outside of my property boundary. So if you want to call the footprint the pavement to pavement edge, yes, the footprint gets bigger. If you want to talk about the property that it uses that we would own, it does not get bigger.
That's a very good way to say it. Thank you.
That's that. And as far as the point of no return, the point of no return is a very gray area, and I know we always talk about it. One thing I should mention is the TIP and the LRTP are 2 completely different things. The LRTP is more of a needs plan. We're supposed to look at the needs, not necessarily that we would do everything. There's a lot of things in the plan, transit things in the plan that we don't have a funding source identified for yet that are in there. There are interstate projects, there are other projects. The SIS, or the Strategic Intermodal System element of the LRTP, is actually managed and is the responsibility of the Florida Department of Transportation in our central office. SIS plan is a statewide plan. It's not a District 7 plan or region by region plan. It is a plan that is done for the whole state based on mobility within the state. Typically, and what's always been the practice is that every MPO in the state has incorporated the SIS LRTP cost feasible plan into their document. And the primary reason is because if they don't, when they get audited, they'll be found non-compliance by FHWA. So the TIP is different because you're prioritizing projects. It's not a needs-based plan that we're putting a need. As far as 275, the reason I think that this was put into the SIS plan as a project, right now there's about 173,000 cars a day that use 275. When you run the regional model, the Tampa Bay regional model, within the LRTP planning phase, you would be about 250,000 cars a day. And those 250,000 cars a day are not because the road be widened, it's because of the land use demographics that are in the plan. It says this, I mean, we're growing. We know we're growing. Whether we widen 275 or we don't, we're gonna grow. They're gonna have to go somewhere. And I understand, we support transit. We made the streetcar free for a number of years. We try to look for opportunities to partner with local agencies to get the federal money that make big transit projects move forward. So far, I know the locals have struggled to try to find the initial funds that we can match and then the federal money can match. If it comes forward, we're certainly there. We've got money sitting for the streetcar expansion, it's sitting there and rolling every year, waiting for the local money so we can build it. But we can't ignore that there's going to be 250,000 cars a day that want, or that's actually 250,000 cars. So if you assume 1.2, 1.1 people in a car or whatever, you might have 300,000 people that want to move in that corridor. And you mentioned Hillsborough Avenue and other places where they might get off. The models will show you that if you don't put the extra lane on the interstate, those cars are still going to want to get through that area, and they'll move to other facilities. They'll move to Florida Avenue, they'll move to North Florida, wherever, because they're going to flow like water. They flow upon the path of least resistance. Part of the idea of widening interstate is, are you going to make people get from Bears Avenue to downtown quicker? Probably not. But are you going to move more people in that corridor at that same level? Probably. And it's good to keep the long-term trips on the roads where you would want them to be. Do you want the longer-term trips on one or
Okay, let's not have any outbursts. Deputy in the back, the next outburst, would you just escort them out the chamber, please? Thank you so much.
So I'll just finish on the fact that it's a needs plan that they develop in Tallahassee. It's not saying, and is it going to be 2035? We don't know. It's not in the 10-year SIS plan. It's not in the SIS. We do a 10-year SIS construction funded plan. It's not in it. Is it going to be 2035? Maybe. Is it going to be 2045? Maybe. We don't know, but it isn't in the 10-year plan today.
But again, this is the question that comes up over and over again for years and years and years. What is the point of no return?
Technically, there isn't a point of no return. Technically, the state would have the right to build the road. However, what we normally will do is work with the local MPOs in order to work to get the project into the tip. When we get past a record of decision on the PD&E, which was actually occurred quite a while ago, that's usually when it is, and we go into design. When it was taken out of the tip, we didn't go into design. But we do the design at this point so that we can make sure we establish a better cost estimate, and also if there's any improvements made on the side streets or the interchange areas, that it's accommodating the future project that we would want to build. And so the point of no return, technically, is not a point of no return. In practice, it's typically been when you get into the design phase, you typically don't go backwards. But it isn't funded, it isn't in the 10-year SIS plan, which would tend to mean, unless there was some infusion of cash that came and Tallahassee decided that they wanted to spend it on this project, it would be sometime after 2035.
Okay.
And I had one more question.
Hold on. We're going to go to Commissioner Watstill, and then we're going to, thank you so much. Commissioner Watstill.
If there's not anyone after me, Madam Chair, I'm happy to just
No, there is.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Will, it's just real brief since you're here and you were asked to speak. I wanted to clear a couple of things up. Several comments were brought up about street lights and the power being down and how that might be some way meaningful. But the reality is we're here to, there's a lot of advocacy for transit. If TECO loses power, can the streetcars still operate if the north and south substation also lose power because they don't have generators?
No, there's two substations.
Right, and if they lose power, like we just went through for a long period, the streetcar can't operate, is that correct? Because it loses its 600 volt direct DC.
That's correct, but I will just say it was the only route that was not detoured when it did come back online.
Yeah,
So I thought that was kind of...
So when TECO loses power, thank you very much, for a week like we just went through, what doesn't lose power is I-275 North in my car in the event of emergency for my family or to egress an area. So comparing the street lights to any other scenario, I think is a fruitless conversation. I'm good. That was all I was going to ask. Sure. Thank you very much. The free fares, they're not free. They're using our very thin black line at heart. There is no one in this county that fought harder for mobility choices than myself. I've been blamed for a lot of things in this county. Things that I had no involvement in, things that I did have involvement in, but I will say most definitely that if it were not for myself and former Commissioner Owen, we would not have any mobility choice, and HART would have been bankrupted and its charter pulled by the state, and that is a fact, and we would not have that mobility choice in Hillsborough County. I do believe in continuing to explore those BRT lines that we are doing right now. We just voted unanimously yes on the HART board to do that, But the reality is that we have heard testimony from professionals in transportation that this does serve right now as our most major form of egress for natural disasters. It's our most major form of regional transportation that's provided for our critical port entities that we found out everyone was desperate to have access to fuel that we just went through. I will not use the tragic events that just happened inappropriately for political claim and activism. I will say that we needed those road networks functioning. Everybody in those times of need wanted the port to get fuel and be back up and running and have cleared roadways for those freight trucks to be brought around the county so that people could get back to some sense of normalcy. Those are all of the reasons at a very macro level that right now, we just heard testimony from a train advocate. He is a professional in the industry. He used to work for Brightline. He used to work for CSX, and he himself testified that the reality of getting CSXs, not only simply getting them to first talk to us, which I've heard we're going to have, but two, to the cost to re-engineer their freight lines to be for civilian transportation are decades away at best. And that was something that he himself, who is a gentleman that was a paid professional to get rail involved for a major company, he himself testified to us that these are the realities that we face in this area. Right now, these CIS funds couldn't even be used for any of those projects. This is a good project to address. I do agree that we can't pave our way out of every situation, but right now we do have unaddressed growth that we've already have, and we have future growth, and this system is going to be the most major form of regional transportation. So I will move for approval of the LRTP and 2050 access plan as it was received.
We already had a motion to.
There was not a motion.
Yes, it was.
Hold on
That's okay. If there was.
Hold on one second. Just settle down. Settle down. I did not hear a motion, but I'm going to call on legal counsel at this time.
So real briefly, and the initial speaker can speak to whether or not it's making a motion. If you did, there was a second, and all that would change. Commissioner Wostels, you'd have a substitute.
I will make a substitute motion then if that's what
I just wanted to add one point of clarity because the phrase that we use here, it's not an official phrase, but the point of no return, that specific provision of state law relates to projects that are included in the TIP, which this board considers each year, every summer in June, that have reached a certain stage of development cannot be removed from the TIP without agreement between this board and the department. That provision of state law is specific to the TIP. It is not, this is the every 5-year LRTP, the unfunded project list. So it's sort of clouding the fact that the LRTP, I think the Secretary was pointing this out, there's no point of no return for the LRTP. It's an unfunded list. The board adopts it every 5 years. However, the board can amend the LRTP, it doesn't have to wait till year 5. It can amend it at any time, just like it does with the TIP. So just because that phrase, I know every time we do a TIP adoption, that comes up, but because we have some members who weren't part of the board in the past who might not know that issue, that's all. So.
All right. Luan, you want to say something?
Yes, I'd like to address this to the board because I think that there was a specific question about whether the 275 project from Hillsborough to Bears is past the quote-unquote point of no return. And respectfully to DOT, our legal counsel has met with DOT legal counsel to discuss this issue. And of course, we approach the problem from 2 different perspectives, them being the department, us being the planning organization. And there's considerable nuance to this project, which we believe means that there's no clear-cut answer. Beginning with the fact that Hillsborough to Bears was originally part of a longer segment. That segment had some design work completed on it. The southern segments from just north of the DTI up to Hannah have been funded for design and construction. So clearly those are past the point of no return. They're on the verge of being constructed. We're not certain whether or to what extent the design has been completed on the Hillsborough to Bears segment. And while our attorneys have met to discuss this, there's no case law that they can point to for clear direction. So I guess the answer to this board is we're not sure.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Coyne.
Thank you very much. And I'm not going to go back over everything that's been said tonight. But I want to take this down a bit of a different path, and in explaining why I think it ought to be removed from this particular plan. I've been sitting here off and on for about 12 of the last 13 years. And the neighborhoods that directly abut our expressways have been here the entire time. And they have been here the entire time because again and again and again, there are construction projects that directly impact their neighborhoods. And without getting into whether or not these are good ideas or bad ideas, the fact of the matter is they've been living with construction for a decade. And my office gets the calls about the noise complaints and the dust. And I think at some point, it is appropriate to say enough. For now, we have so many other priorities in the community that are unfunded. We have a tremendous list that it runs the gamut of the entire county. And I think that even if this is something that by leaving it in might cause it to be delayed by a decade or 15 years, the reality is that we're still dangling it out there saying it's gonna happen imminently. And I thought that Mr. Gwynn's answer was very telling. Yes, there's no funding right now for it, that's true. But if Tallahassee decided they did want to fund it, we are serving it up on a platter to be started right away if that's the direction that they decide to go in. And I think that we owe this neighborhood a little bit of a break from the constant construction that they have been living with. And so for that reason, I'm going to support removal and not even get into some of the other ancillary things that have been talked about.
Madam Chair, point of information.
Mayor Ross.
Thank you, Commissioner. I hesitate to say anything for fear of having an outburst here, but so I see many of you holding up People First signs, and I've gotten the emails that we've all gotten, the Boilermaker emails that 50 people sign and send to you the same exact email. So one thing that I just want to comment, I'm not going to talk about everything here, but I don't much like being cast as a person who's, the ones that are in favor of this project don't care about people. But I don't think anybody'd be sitting up on this dais if they didn't care about people. There's plenty of other things we could be doing with our time, all right? Believe me. So I do care about people, and although the people that live north of Hillsborough along the interstate don't live in Temple Terrace, they do live in Hillsborough County, they do live in Tampa, and they're part of our community, and they're very important to me. Their quality of life is very important to me. The people, many of you who live south of Hillsborough along the interstate, fought very, very hard to get sound walls on your section of the road. And you got them. And I'm glad you got them. And I'm glad you fought for them. You fought for them, and rightfully so. And you got them. I believe the people north of Hillsborough Avenue deserve those same sound walls. And I believe if you're one of those people whose backyard looks right at the interstate, you would probably like to have a 14-foot sound wall. And as you all know, DOT cannot build those sound walls unless they're connected to a project. And so, unless they connect it to a project, those folks will never get sound walls. And I think that those people would be very happy to have sound walls. You can shake your head all you want, but we've polled those people and they want them. Okay. So the other thing is, it's been suggested that there's some nefarious activity because this project was recategorized at the June TIP hearing. But I sat on this dais in this room when it was recategorized in the June TIP hearing in 2021. And not a single person on the board knew that that was going to be brought up when it was brought up in 2021. And it was a split vote, just like this was, and it passed to reclassify that project and retain the sound walls and discard the rest of the project, even though Secretary Gwynn told us at the time, you've just killed it because we can't build sound walls unless it's tied to a project. So to say that it was nefarious what happened this June Well, if it was equally as nefarious when Commissioner Kemp brought it up in 2021. So that's the same thing. It's exactly the same way that it happened. You can shake your head, I was here, right? So anyway, I'm not gonna change anybody's mind, I know that, but.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna.
Madam Chair, point of order. This is Alan Clendenin.
Councilman Clendenin, yes, go ahead, please. Good
I
evening.
believe we had a motion on the floor that failed to get a second, and if that is the case, I would like to make a motion to pass the LRT with striking the language referring to the 275 widening project.
I'm going to have to rule you out of order. You must be present in the boardroom at the meeting to make a motion. That's what we
Thank you.
voted on before, and it still stands tonight.
And Madam Chair, just to clarify, you have a motion and a second.
I was going to that. I was responding.
Commissioner Wostel, I did not see who was there a second on the substitute motion?
There was.
Okay. All right.
So who made the first motion? Was it you, Councilman Maniscalco, and Hurtak? You second. Can you restate your motion, please, for the record? Gail, did you get it the first time? Okay.
Do you want me to restate it?
Gail, you want to? Can you restate it, Gail?
Councilmember Maniscalco moved to strike the I-275 capacity project from the LRTP.
Okay.
And just as a point of order, though, Madam Chair,
Hold on one second. Okay, we've heard all of the comments. We in board discussion. Please do not interrupt us again. Let us get through board discussion. We sat patiently and we heard all of the comments. Okay? So let us get through the board discussion and make the motion, and then we can move on. Commissioner Wilson, thank you so much.
Just as a general point of order, then I made a proper substitute motion that had a second, which is the motion on the floor to be voted on.
And who seconded your? No, Kilton. Okay,
And that was to approve the LRTP and 2050 access plan as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We're going to take the substitute motion first. Have a motion and a second. Gail, can you repeat the motion so I get it right? Because I didn't write it down. I want to make sure it is stated correctly so we can call for the substitute motion vote.
Commissioner Wastel made a substitute motion to approve the Access 2050 LRTP as presented. I believe that was seconded by Commissioner Miller.
Mayor
I'm
Kilton.
sorry, Mayor Kilton, thank you.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Myers.
No.
Mayor Ross.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Wastel.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen.
No.
Commissioner Hurtak.
Councilwoman
I'm
Hurtak,
sorry,
no.
Councilmember Hurtak. Councilmember Maniscalco.
No.
Mayor Kilton.
Yes.
Charles Klug.
Yes.
Jean Nadeau.
Yes.
Bob Fry.
Yes.
Gary Hartfield.
No.
The motion passes 7-5.
All right. Point of order. Alan Clendenin is present for a vote.
I'm sorry, Councilman. You have to be present in the chamber tonight to cast your vote.
To cast a vote. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay. So motion's passed 7-5. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we'll move right into the Executive Director report.
Thank you, board members. I appreciate you all being here.
Hold on one second. I'm just hold up a second. Staff, if we have anyone on online, would you just turn the mic off, please?
Thank you, board members. Appreciate your time this evening. Thank you for participating in this process. My director's report, I'll keep it short so that we can get out of here. The next TPO board meeting will be held 1 week from today, November 6, 2024, 10 o'clock in the 26th floor. I want to offer a recap of the September Transportation Management Area Leadership Group meeting. Again, that group is the Tri-County group with representatives from Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough. At that meeting, our TMA intended to discuss the role of small cities. Our staff presented a presentation with options for how those could be accommodated on a merged board. We also presented a draft scope of work to have a consultant team continue the exploratory study of the regional merger. After we presented some options to the TMA regarding how to include small cities on a merged board, our TMA reps presented the TPO's position, which is to maintain autonomy over our 11 seats that are entitled to Hillsborough County. After a riveting discussion, the TMA was unable to reach a decision about how to accommodate the small cities, and as a matter of fact, the counties as well. Some of the reps who were in attendance continued to express concern about the port and the airport being taken off the top. The TMA had previously taken action well, they were in agreement that the port and the airport should be taken off the top and the rest of the 23 seats divided by population among the 3 counties, but some members of the TMA walked back that position. Some also expressed concern about the City of Tampa's willingness to participate in that exploratory study that we're currently scoping. They were seeking a commitment that the city will evaluate options in good faith. We hope to return to that topic at the December TMA meeting. And then finally, the exploratory study was recommended to be phased and include a milestone sometime near the middle of that study, culminating in a decision by the stakeholders that have standing before we continue into a phase 2. The thought process behind this was that we should be good stewards of the federal grant that has been offered to us and not waste the taxpayers' dollars if it's a foregone conclusion that the merger will not move forward. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Wilson.
Who were the members that walked back in the TMA, do you know?
That was Pasco County Commissioner Jack Mariano, I believe. There may have been 1 or 2 others, but I believe that he was kind of leading that conversation.
He walked back them 2 being represented from taking off the top?
Yes. I'll note that Commissioner Mariano was not in attendance at the May TMA meeting, so it's possible that he did not know about the TMA's action at the May meeting.
Okay, I'll talk to him. And I won't support anything that the 2 small cities don't feel comfortable with, so that's something I definitely want resolved. I don't want them being filibustered out of getting representation. So, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cohen.
Was he the only one?
Commissioner, off the top of my head, I can't recall. There was a lot of discussion at the table, some of it off topic. My recollection is that Commissioner Mariano was kind of leading that conversation. There may have been some support from others, but I think he was the primary one who was offering.
When are we going to give you instructions on the next set of negotiating positions for the next meeting?
Well, we are intending to, at the November special meeting, we'd like to revisit the topic of the scope of work and what that looks like, present you with some milestones. We don't believe that our staffs will be returning to the board to identify positions until after the kickoff of that exploratory study. So basically, we're looking to procure a consultant team to lead that now. They will be unbiased. They'll be unbiased in a way that our staff can't guarantee. And to dig through the details of what that merger might look like, I think it's best to outsource it to someone without a vested interest.
So Commissioner Mariano expressed opposition, but there was no actual formal action taken?
Correct.
And there's not going to be an opportunity for that before the study commences?
I don't believe so unless the TMA and the respective boards agree to defer the kickoff of the study. That being said, with the consultant team, we could easily task them with leading that conversation.
I would just make the comment that it's very unhelpful if they start to backtrack from decisions that have already been made. Once decisions have been made, we need to move on to the next set of decisions, not have, lone wolves that take us, or we'll never get anywhere with this at all. And that was a very important thing that was agreed at the beginning. And it's my view that the entire process could fall apart if they try to undo that.
Understood.
Okay. Hold on, Councilman Maniscalco?
No, I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, I saw your mic. Okay, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Hurtak?
Basically, his concern is that Pasco has a lot more residents and that the latest census does not include that. And so he was pretty adamant, and he talked his fellow Pasco people into questioning it because they want another representative. They don't think that the number they have was enough. So he was pretty passionate about it. It came completely out of surprise.
Okay, Mayor Ross.
So thank you. Commissioner Cohen, just to respond, there was a lot of lively discussion at that, and one was Commissioner Mariano catching everybody kind of off guard with wanting another bite at the apple, because we all thought we had gotten past that. In fact, Commissioner Starkey, the chair of the group, also from Pasco, was caught off guard with that too, and she pointed out that not only had the TMA group voted on that, but the BOCC had voted in approval of that also. And so everybody got a little flustered with that, including Pinellas County commissioners, like, what's going on? We've already moved past this point. But another issue came up too, in that the group got wind that the city of Tampa may now have some hesitancy about the whole merger idea in light of being upset about what this issue tonight, for instance, getting back on the tip. And so the city of Tampa, certain representatives didn't feel like this board was representing Tampa well, and they were never going to approve a merged TPO because that was only going to amplify the problem. So at that comment, Commissioner Eggers of Pinellas County says, well, I'll tell you what, if that's the way Tampa feels, I really wish you would go back to your city council and put that to a vote now, because if it's dead in the water, we would like to, because Tampa has veto power over it, we would like to know that it's dead in the water now before we spend $500,000 of taxpayer money to hire the consultant to guide us through this process, only when we know that it's dead already. So the question was posed to Tampa to please take that back. I don't know the status of that. So it was felt like a really backward stepping meeting. I mean, I was really proud of the progress that the TMA had made when you guys first appointed me to this. I thought there's no way these elected officials are going to get anything done. And we actually have. We've come to consensus on a lot of things, including the port and the airport and the apportionment, and we've actually accomplished a lot. And I don't know if some of that has slipped away now or if this is going to work. It was not a good meeting. So I don't know what the status is at Tampa.
Commissioner Worcester.
I was just going to remind our colleagues that we do have, it got rescheduled again because of the storm, but the Tri-County county commissioners that we've been bringing back that haven't happened in a long time. So I believe we could approach that as a topic of conversation to get all of the Pasco County commissioners there and Pinellas, and we can kind of come to some.
Do you know when it's been rescheduled for?
I don't know now. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll find out.
Yeah, but
is it soon?
For all of you, that's important for all of you to hear as well. And I mean, I think that once we explain the regional importance of the port and the airport, I think that we could get some support.
Councilwoman Hurtak, okay. Anything else?
I was going to add, part of that conversation in May with the TMA, I know there was some confusion specifically from Pasco. The concern was that Hillsborough County Commission was going to use us as a vehicle to put another elected official on there.
We got past that.
But, okay, so even with Commissioner Mariano, you did? I think so. Okay, because I know that is like when you said, sorry, I know that was a piece, and if he missed that May meeting, and I know that was a very intense conversation amongst this board of how our boards function and who makes those appointees and how we're appointed and those types of things. So I'm glad that was not the issue, just making sure.
Okay.
And that scope of work will definitely be seeking a mechanism to hold the decision-making bodies accountable to the decisions that have been made. The TMA is an interesting group because there's a lot of turnover of the representatives, not only due to election cycles, but every December, we also elect our own new TMA reps. So it's a kind of a carousel of representatives, or at least it has been in the past. And the way in which Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough approaches these policy positions is markedly different. The approach that we've taken is to get a board action before we go to the TMA. I'm not sure that the others are doing the same.
Okay. Any other questions? You have anything else? Jay? Okay, we'll move right on to any old business? Any new business? Sound like adjournment. Thank you all so much.